My younger sister Kate had been living with cancer for 10 years before this experience. In mid-December 2022, she came to my home to receive hospice care. From December 16, 2022 to January 25, 2023, 3 interconnected experiences occurred during Kate's departure from this world. The first was when I found myself in the hospital on December 23, 2022, due to anaphylactic shock. I experienced a near-death experience there, returned to the living room of my own home, standing on the ceiling, overlooking Kate on the hospice care bed. The entire room was enveloped in a great mist, with her friends sitting on the couch. I had a question in my mind: what would happen to her if I died? The answer was, it's okay, she'll be fine. Then all my animals with her flashed before my eyes, and I asked the same question, receiving the same answer. Finally, the faces of my 3 adult children flashed before me, and then stayed together in my sight, and I asked the same question again. During the process of this answer, I felt hesitation and a surge of emotions and immediately ended this part of the experience. When I woke up and was told I could go home, I returned to the task of caring for Kate. The second experience occurred after I returned home, and Kate was sleeping on the bed in the living room. I went to take a shower, with a friend watching her. While showering, I experienced 3 times where Kate fully entered my body, from head to toe. I realized I was standing in the shower, both myself and Kate. I also stood outside of myself, directly facing me, watching Kate. I knew Kate was me, and I was Kate, while another me stood outside of the original me, witnessing everything. The first time, I could hear Kate laughing in my mind, saying, "Haha, look at what I can do, sister." It was a very fast experience. The second time, I could feel I was both of us and reached out to touch my hair. I touched Kate's hair, which was much coarser than mine. I felt a shock and heard a wow sound in my mind, and then it ended. The third time she did this, I asked her to stop. As her sole and full-time caregiver, I felt extremely exhausted and unable to handle the situation. She stopped. The third experience was also accidental and a great honor. Kate lived until January 25th. In the last few days of her life, she was unresponsive. A friend helped me a lot during this time, accompanying me through Kate's last 2 nights of life. Neither of us slept much, not wanting to sleep when she passed away. Around 7 a.m. on January 25th, my friend went home to rest for a while. I closed the door, returned to the living room, and Kate was there. I started sitting on the couch, but there was a strong inner need to lean against her head. I stood up again and moved to her side. As I stood up from the couch, the number 842 lit up in the air in front of me like a digital clock, displayed in large red digits. The TV had been off for several days, no computer was on, and I had no alarm clock. I quickly ignored it because it made no sense to me, and I only thought of Kate. When I realized she might pass away while I was alone, I felt very anxious. I sat by her hospice care bed, watching her, knowing our time together wouldn't be long, listening to her faint breathing, observing her chest rise and fall rapidly, her long exhales making my soul uneasy. I felt fortunate that her forehead was smooth, showing no signs of pressure or pain, only subtle, almost imperceptible changes in expression, occasionally showing a look of confusion or concern, a slight furrow of the brow or a tilted head, and then as if I heard her inner voice or felt her need. I felt she knew she was about to leave but didn't know how to leave or which path to choose, and she wanted me to go with her. She had said the previous Thursday that she felt like both of us were leaving, but I told her I wasn't going to die yet. I told her that her dying would make me feel like I was dying, but I wouldn't go with her. I didn't know. So I readjusted the chair, lowered the bed rail, and got closer to her, my mouth almost touching her ear. First, I sang or hummed the song Tula Tula, which Dad sang to her when she was about 5 years old, stung by a bluebottle. It's an old African lullaby. He carried her on his shoulder, humming that song as he ran to the beach for help. It was so soothing and caring, something I hadn't thought about in years, but it was there, gently flowing from my mouth into her ear. From then on, it was as if I were just in a state where I somehow knew what to say and what to do. I had no plan for how to do this, didn't know what I was going to say or do, or what would happen, but I knew what I was doing and what needed to be done for Kate. I didn't know this was possible, and I didn't feel pressured or emotional, it just happened, and I was doing it. I realized the living room had disappeared, everything was a pale gray light, and only the upper bodies of both of us were visible. Then, as if I entered a deeper place, we stood on a dirt road. The road was smooth, without stones or potholes, and we were just there. There was no landing, no arrival, we were just there. I could feel her tension and stress, knowing she was very worried or anxious. I remember feeling calm, almost smiling, as I told her she could stand up again and walk normally without pain or fear of falling, encouraging her to try. She bounced a bit under her feet, and I could feel her joy at being pain-free and able to walk freely. I pointed to the gently sloping road and told her this was the path we had to take, waited a moment for her to adjust, stood up straight, and no longer felt pain. The road had no pavement, just a fairly ordinary dirt road, a very light sandy yellow, somewhat narrow, and felt comfortable. At the beginning of this road, there was a middle stripe like a real road, but as we progressed together, I felt we stood together, looking into the distance. On both sides of the road were colorful plants, shrubs, trees, and flowers, some plain and unremarkable, with nothing particularly striking, and as we gradually started walking, it became more and more bland. At first, there were faint colors, but it was more important to keep going and be together. The colors were distracting, so they left. When I first noticed we were on this road, I realized there were faint, almost gentle colors, not as bright and beautiful as others described, just calm and gentle. I also felt my intuition as a photographer wanting to capture this beauty, but the colors faded almost immediately after that quick thought. I knew there were still colors there, but I couldn't see them, although there were no colors, the flowers, etc., were solid, opaque. I told her this was the way to go, and if she looked into the distance, she would see a large black gate that looked like a rail gate, not solid, but with vertical stripes you could see through. There was a square white column on either side of the gate, but there was no scenery on either side of the gate posts, no ground, no road, or fence. "Give me a minute," she said. She often said this when she got up, needed to adjust to new movements or situations. She took some time, and then I encouraged her to continue slowly, telling her I would be there with her all the way. I didn't touch her, nor did I touch myself, I didn't support her, and she was steady on her feet. We didn't look at each other on the road, nor did we have any contact, but I knew her thoughts and feelings. I realized our bodies were intact, but I didn't see my legs or feet. I knew and saw she had no problem standing and walking. I also didn't know what we were wearing, nor did I see how we walked down this road step by step. Somehow or other, we moved down this road. I told her behind those gates were all her people, those who wanted her to join them. They were all excited about her arrival. "Give me a minute," she said softly, a bit out of breath, slowing her pace a bit. When we were about halfway there, Kate said softly, "I'd rather stay here with you." I fully realized her pain at this moment and took some time to gently tell her how important she was in my life and how much I wished she could stay with me. I told her this was the only way forward, and being able to be with me was not a choice. "You can't turn back, you can't stand still, you can't go left or right, the only way is forward, and I'll be with you," I told her. She nodded and continued walking for a while. I remember a small part of me wondering how I could be so calm when telling her these things, but that part was separate from me walking with her. Encouraging her gently and taking a few minutes now and then, I told her to look at the gate, it was getting closer, and see all the people waiting there. "Give me a minute," she whispered. So we stood for a while, relaxed, making her more comfortable with the process, and seeing the progress we were making toward the gate. I saw people there, but I couldn't discern individuals. At this moment, I didn't feel rushed, nor was there a time limit to reach the gate. Everything was under her control. As we approached, I could now see all the people I knew, standing on the other side of the enormous closed gate. There were no walls or fences on either side of the gate, just the gate, with nothing on either side. Our focus was on the gate, and now on the people behind the gate. They stood quietly there, just patiently waiting for Kate. I kept telling her that I would walk with her, that everything was okay, and she was safe. I told her it was her journey, and I was just here to help her get there, and I would be with her until the end. I told her no one would come and drag her away, they would stay there until she was ready to go to them on her own. As I said these words, I felt her comforted. I told her that only when she reached out would they reach out to her. As our steps brought us closer and closer to the gate, she seemed to relax little by little. She was a bit confused about the people, so I started naming some of them. She seemed to relax even more, her head tilting slightly as she looked through the gate. I could feel her becoming more relaxed, less tense, noticing that she stood up straighter. There were many people, some I recognized but couldn't determine where I knew them from. But I did see my mother, father, aunt, and nephew who died by suicide, and many others. I recognized recently deceased friends, as well as those long gone. I recognized them, knew who they were, but I couldn't see their facial features. They were like minimalist works of art to me, with a painter picking up a brush, one stroke for a skirt or pants, another for a shirt, dots or spots for featureless faces. Again, I knew their clothes had colors, maybe even patterns, but I just couldn't see them. Then we were very close to the giant gate, about 6 feet away. I told her to open the door to go find her people, just raise either hand as if in a classroom. I knew she needed to control this process, and I was just the support she needed. I told her I would step back a little before she raised her hand, just one step, and this was her journey. I reminded her once again that I wasn't going with her now, just bringing her here, and I would wait until she got there. "Give me a minute," she said, "then can I look at you one more time?" I assured her she could take all the time she needed, of course, she could look at me again. She turned to face me, locking eyes with her beautiful blue ones and a relaxed smile, but quickly got drawn back to the people behind the door. I noticed she looked healthier, no longer sick. After another "give me a minute," her right hand slowly rose, and the door slid silently to the left, disappearing into the column on the left, not extending beyond. People stood quietly, arms by their sides, emanating understanding and patience. So many people we knew were there, all just watching Kate. I was glad they were all watching her because this was all about her, and I was just here to help. I didn't feel negatively about not being noticed by my own family and friends, just happy for Kate being welcomed in this way. Kate took a deep breath, asking for another minute. We stood there in front of so many people, completely calm, just soaking it in. I could feel Kate almost happy now, her shoulders relaxed, and I could feel her calmness. After a while, I quietly asked her if she was ready, making sure only to step forward when she was ready. She half-turned, looking over her left shoulder, and asked, "Can I wave to you one more time?" "Of course," I said. As she took a few steps forward, I stayed in place, then her left hand raised, elbow and wrist bent, she waved to me in a lively, cheerful, and relaxed manner, continuing forward with a lightened pace. As her left hand finished waving to me and dropped again, her right hand reached out to the crowd in front of her, taking those last few steps faster, more sure, and more confidently. She stepped through the doorway and I watched everyone begin to greet her with so much joy and relief. It was like she had been thrown a surprise party, with people she had never expected and hadn't seen in a long time. There was joy in the air, everything was so gentle, peaceful, and right. As I watched her being welcomed and socializing with everyone, a very thin line formed on the ground next to the door. It was a thin line that undulated slightly, and as everything behind the door slowly and gradually moved away from me, a mist gently covered everything. Kind of like continents breaking apart. I think the part left has a bluish tint to it, but again I can't see the color. Kate didn't look back again, which made me glad because at that moment I knew without a doubt that she didn't need to look back longing to stay here again, she would be okay. The door never closed, as I watched everything drifting away. I heard a voice in my mind saying, "Well done." It wasn't a man's voice or a woman's voice, just a gentle, kind voice, knowing that I had done what Kate needed me to do, to help, assure, and accompany her to complete her final journey on Earth. It brought me peace, and I deeply appreciated that I had walked the last journey with her. I felt awed by everything I had just experienced. Right after that, I felt myself on the left side of where I had been standing before, seeing a mist, fog, or cloud drifting towards me, enveloping me in a cocoon. It was incredibly relaxing, and I felt a deep calm and tranquility enveloping me within this cocoon. I realized I was standing, suspended, but completely relaxed and calm. Then I heard a gentle click, and I was back in my living room, standing by Kate's bedside, still leaning over her. The gray mist disappeared, and everything returned to normal. I could hear the sounds of cats and dogs again, along with the noises from outside. Looking up, I noticed the sun was bright, and my eyes saw the clock on the wall, noting the time. I looked down again at Kate as her last breath brushed past my face. It was 8:42 in the morning. That was the 842 I saw at the beginning of this experience. Initially, I didn't realize how much time had passed because time wasn't an issue during this experience. About 1 hour and 40 minutes later, I no longer felt back pain from leaning over her bedside. I was perfectly comfortable. It wasn't until months later, when I told my son about this, that he pointed out the length of time. Losing my sister was devastating. Our relationship was very close, just 365.5 days apart, like intimate friends, confidants, supporting each other in every aspect of life. We shared a lifetime of adventures, many unusual experiences, things that happened to her later happened to me, and vice versa, even in appearance. This experience somehow lessened some of the pain, allowing me to cope with life here, knowing absolutely that she was just fine. I had several other experiences with her, including a visual visit after she passed away, indicating she was still nearby and encouraging me to continue living a fulfilling life. Speaking of all this, I need to do something with my experience, combining it with my other experiences, to help those who are afraid of transition. I never knew shared death experiences existed, and this opened up a whole new world for me. I now also realize that several years ago I had a very different shared death experience with my ex-husband, but I didn't know what happened, so I pushed that experience away until it resurfaced when I started researching this walk with Kate. The only thing similar to my experience that I recently found was what Judy G. shared, where she talks about the ancient Celtic traditions of Anamara and Anamare, where they accompany souls to the other side. One interesting aspect of this experience for me was that it didn't show me anything, no beautiful colors, angels, lights, beautiful music, illusions, no tunnels or messages to bring back or teach or guide me, just as the voice said, this was a job I had to do, chosen or chosen. It was a privilege. I felt deeply honored, frankly amazed, that I could do this. To see my dear sister, my other half, safe and happy, was a priceless gift.